Now we're going to turn to our next panel about the power in advocacy. As Pat mentioned, this year marked 20 years since passage of the MD Care Act. This really was landmark legislation for the muscular dystrophies. It ushered in a new era of federal investment into Duchenne and Becker and truly changed the landscape. And it really has been because of patient advocacy, families advocating across the country with their members of Congress, creating champions, as well as creating relationships with those at the federal level. Here's a word from some of those champions before we begin the next panel.
I joined this battle almost 20 years ago when a fellow Mississippian told me about his son's diagnosis with Duchenne. That led me to introduce the MD Care Act, which dedicated the first federal research dollars for DMD.
The MD Care Act galvanized the Duchenne community. It shifted the global conversation. It changed outcomes for Duchenne and the other muscular dystrophies. And most importantly, it demonstrated that every voice matters.
Not only do we just need research at NIH, we need patient advocacy. We need to hear the patient voice. We need to understand how people feel and what matters to them about the disease and how we can best track the progress and improvement with treatments.
I think this is proof of concept that advocacy really matters, but also convening people across a variety of sectors to focus on an important problem and really move the needle on the dial gives us hope that we can do the same for many other conditions.
Treatments and cures take time, but we have made progress. We have done it together, and I can tell you none of this would have gotten done without all of you and the people before you and the people that never gave up, either fighting for themselves, for their family members, for their neighbors, and for people they don't even know.
Every patient, every advocate, and every member of the support system shows courage, shows resolve, and moves the needle forward. My message to you is simple: keep it up.
I intend to keep pressing forward in the fight against muscular dystrophy. There are still challenges ahead, but the gains we have made hold the promise of even greater breakthroughs to come, and one day, a cure.
Those voices you just heard were moved to action because of families advocating and telling their story. Today, we have an incredible group of family members, all advocacy captains from across the country, who are here to talk about the power and importance of advocacy. Joining us today, we have John Killian, Patty Elder, Ravi Littman, Jessica Fabus, Colin Worth, and Colleen Lavadia. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're thrilled to have you here to speak about the power of advocacy. And I'm going to start with John Killian because he's in the middle square there. So I'm going to pick on him first. John, howdy from Texas. As they say, this isn't your first time at the rodeo when it comes to advocacy. You've been doing this for many years. You like all those Texas references, I'm sure. Can you talk a bit about your experience in advocacy, why you got started, and what it's been like?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'm just realizing actually that when I started advocating, I was the same age I think you are right now. So I'm feeling kind of old. So when our son Sam was diagnosed in 2002 or 2003, I started just looking around and realizing that the MD Care Act had been passed, but really hadn't sort of kicked in, and so the impact hadn't really been felt. And so in those early years, it was really just about finding funding for research because there just wasn't that much going on, and certainly funding for the NIH and other organizations in Washington was really lacking. And then over the years, as we started to see more funding for research and the impact of the MD CARE Act and the Wellstone Research Centers and those kind of things, we realized that one, we were having an impact, and two, there were so many other things that we needed to have an impact on, things like care considerations, and now I think especially the focus on the FDA and how we get all of this research that's been funded and all these companies that are working on our behalf. How do we get those things through the process? And we're having an impact there too. But like they said in the video, there's much more to be done. So we got to keep going back.
We can't put our foot off the gas. I mean, I think advocacy is a marathon and not a sprint, and it's about relationship building over time, which you all have been such a big part of. So Ravi Littman from Tennessee, could you tell us a bit about why you got started with advocacy and your experience over the years?
Hi, Ryan. It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the panel. So last year, I was my first advocacy conference back in March before COVID shut everything down. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about it. I had recently joined the PAC, which is for patient adults, their voices and so. So I recently been involved with that, and I was interested in advocating for patients with DMD because I had never done it before. I was nervous, of course, which I am kind of now, because I didn't know what to expect. And obviously I'm no policy expert. And I never met my congressional members in the House or the Senate. But thankfully, Patty Elder, who's also on the panel, she warmly welcomed me and even helped guide me through the meetings with my representatives, even though she wasn't even from the same state. So it was truly a great experience and something I'll be doing hopefully for the coming future.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're a wonderful advocate, I must say, and you're doing great. And I think we see advocates tend to pay it forward. Once they first get there, they're a little intimidated in their first year, but they pay it forward to other advocates and get them comfortable. Patty, you did that, and you've done that many times. Turning to you as an aunt of someone with Duchenne, tell us about your experience with advocacy over the years.
Thanks, Ryan. I actually got involved soon after my nephew Logan, who lives in Texas also, was diagnosed. Now, all of you who are in the Duchenne community are already advocates for your sons, your nephews, your grandsons, your friends. You advocate for tirelessly for him with respect to his health care, his mental and his emotional and social health, his education, his dreams for the future. And if you participate in clinical trials, which many of you do, or other research, including those PPMD surveys, you're helping to advocate for all of those who live with Duchenne, not just your special person. So by participating in the advocacy conference, you can help persuade others to be champions for the whole Duchenne community. You help spread the circle of awareness and support. And we're really making a difference. In the 11 or 12 years that I've been attending the advocacy conference, I've turned 3 of them into mini family reunions by inviting other relatives from other states to join me in DC to meet with their states, senators and representatives. But even if you can't make it to DC, you can meet with your elected officials on home turf, in their district or state offices, and PPMD can certainly help support those efforts. Or be on the lookout, I should say, and be on the lookout and respond to PPMD's emails and action alerts. Help us widen the circle of support.
Totally
it makes
agree.
a difference.
Totally agree, Patty. In many ways that we try to give you as many tools as possible, and I think that family members advocating is so important. It's a way to support your family, and we've seen many close friends as well advocate. So, Jessica, as another family member, talk a bit about what you've experienced and really the importance of telling your story when it comes to advocating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think among family members, sometimes there is this thought that, well, I don't have a son with Duchenne, or I'm just a friend, or I'm just a colleague. In my case, I am just a cousin. I'm also a carrier for Duchenne. But I will give you a great example of what the power of your story is as just a cousin. And a couple years ago at the conference, I had to actually talk to one of my house members on my own. And it was a moment where it's like, this might be a little scary, but I'm going to work through the fear and I'm going to do it anyway because of the importance of what we're here for. And I went and I spoke to a young woman, staff member of one of my representatives, and I told her my story. I told her that I was a carrier. I told her what Duchenne was and why it's so important that we continue to have research and funding. And, long story short, the member did sign on, first-time member signing on, but that wasn't the takeaway for me. After I told my story, she said to me, "Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea that Duchenne could come through the female line. And actually, I have family members years and years and years ago who had Duchenne. And she had no idea that was a possibility. She was someone who was about to get married, who was considering having a family, and now had that information. So when you tell your story, it's not just getting House members, senators to sign on. Yes, that is our goal. You don't know who you're telling your story to. You may be touching someone in a way that you had no idea you can change the trajectory of someone's life. So that's what I did as just a cousin.
I think that's amazing, and it's so true. And Ravi, you touched on this before too, that you don't have to be a policy expert. We're not expecting you to know legislation through and through. We're expecting you to be able to tell your personal story, and you'll have support from those who are seasoned advocates like those who are on the line. Just a reminder, Jessica's from New York, Patty's from Maryland. I think I've named all the states, but these folks, if you're in that state, they can help you as well. Shifting now to Colleen, we went virtual this year, which was a very positive experience. Face-to-face advocacy is very important. I should stress that we're going to have to continue that. But Colleen, tell us about that experience. Give us a little background on your history as well.
Sure. Well, I'm from Florida, and we have a lot of ground to cover here. The advocacy conference has become one of my favorite things to do every year. Goodness, it's been 6 or 7 years now. I've headed to DC, and I'm a people person. I love face-to-face. I love giving hugs. So I certainly miss that aspect of it. But Florida really stepped up to the plate this year when it came to the virtual component of it. We had a lot of people come forward who haven't been able to get to DC, but now that they've taken part and they've been experienced to what the advocacy conference is all about, they've gotten bitten by the bug, as they've said. They've really become accustomed to what we do. They realize you don't have to be a policy expert. You don't have to be a poli-sci major. You just need to go and speak with our lawmakers and let them know your story. Make that personal connection. And that truly is the key. When you sit there as a parent, a grandparent, a cousin, as Jessica said, all of a sudden that story or that statistic becomes real. You are living this. And so many times, these lawmakers jump in and ask us question after question and really want to know. And it's nice when you follow through and you send an email to say, thanks for meeting with us. Sometimes you don't get a response, but when you do, it's really nice. And when they remember, hey, give your best to my son. I hope he's doing well playing t-ball or what have you. It's really important. And you've connected with them on a different level rather than here's our folder. Thank you very much. Be connected definitely at a different level.
Yeah, I agree. I think that at the end of the day, this is relationship building. I've said that before. I'll say it again. And you have to be consistent. We're proud to boast that we have the longest running rare disease advocacy conference in the country. It's because of all you. Colin, we're going to end the panel with thoughts from you. You've been advocating. You've been galvanizing the other advocates in your state. You're also a PPMD Connect captain. Tell us your thoughts. If you have a message for other advocates who may be thinking of advocating but haven't taken the plunge, what is your overall message to them and how you feel about advocacy?
So, yeah. Hi everyone, sorry. So I think it's just whatever, I would just say whatever way you can participate makes a difference. So rather, whether in person or virtually, or even just sending an email or making a phone call to your representative's office can make an impact. And as everyone is saying, you're sharing your story is really makes an impact.
It truly does. It truly does. And I want to thank you all for all you do. Colin, I want to mention you're from Virginia, right in the backyard of Congress, and has been doing a great job getting people active in the advocacy conference. You all have. You've all inspired so many people. We couldn't do it without you. I could talk to you for another 30 minutes. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'll be looking forward to working with you more in the future. For those who are listening to us about this, if you've never advocated before, we have an action alert going out right now on the Benefit Act, and I hope you take the small step of taking that action alert online, and we'll send more information about next year's advocacy conference, which will hopefully be in person. So hopefully I'll see all of you in person. So thank you, panelists. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.